want to talk a little bit about trademarks. And I guess the lesson today on IP in the news is you can file a trademark, but that doesn't mean that you're going to get one. So, everybody or most people who follow football are familiar with the Washington football team story. A long time ago, they were known by the Washington Redskins. And of course, many people objected to the use of the term Redskins because they felt it was derogatory to Native Americans. So they there was a huge intellectual property trademark controversy around that. And eventually, though, that kind of went away because they changed their name to the Washington football team. And now they've decided to rebrand themselves and they're calling themselves the Commanders, right? So they picked that name. They filed their trademark application at the US Trademark Office. And guess what? They're having trouble getting the trademark. So after all of that trouble, they're finding it difficult to actually get a trademark on the name that they wanted. So the lesson is that it's not always easy. You don't just file a trademark. Sometimes you have to work to get it. And so they're in the process of doing that now.
So you mean the USPTO won't change the rules for the football teams like the
Well, the
refs do?
NFL has a lot of sway in this country, but I don't think that they're going to do that. So there are two rejections. So when the trademark office doesn't like your trademark, they reject it. And one rejected is for the Commander Classic, which is a football game between the Navy and the Army, and they call it the Commander Classic. And they've had a trademark since 2020. And then there's another guy out there, Martin McCarthy. And Martin, when he heard that the Washington football team was going to be filing trademarks, he filed a bunch of trademarks with the word commander in them, just hoping that they would pick one of those and then they would have to pay him money. So
I thought he said he was going to gift them to them.
well, that's what he said when he filed them back like 2-3 years ago, but we'll see what actually happens. So anyway, that's the moral of the story is you don't necessarily get a trademark when you file it. The Commanders are going to have to deal with these rejections at the patent office. Their attorney says that they're very confident, but you never know what's going to happen. And it would be a real shame if after all the branding that the Commanders have done, the website, the merch that they've put out, if the trademark gets denied, because then they're going to be in a pretty tough spot. So anyway,
can they buy it from the other people?
Yeah, they could probably work out some sort of deal. They have plenty of money, so I'm sure that's how they'll address it. But anyway, that's IP in the news for today. I'd like to ask our distinguished panel. Um, uh, uh, Christina, welcome to the show. So glad to have you back, and we're excited about your new book. Tell us what you think about this controversy.
Thank you so much for inviting me back. And I guess I will have to start the same way I started last time, that IP is not really my forte. But, as I was listening to that, I thought I actually like the, Washington football team quite well, because it's so clear until I remember that I'm European. So maybe what I mean by football is very different than what you guys mean by football. And, if we were talking about trademarks internationally, that might have been the tough word. But on a serious note, in my opinion, since they already had to rebrand, then maybe not so much damage is going to be done if they have to rebrand again.
Well, yeah, I think that, people are sort of used to them rebranding now. So it may not be, it may not be
Washington rebrands.
Yeah, there you go. So, yeah. And so we'll see what happens. I think that the attorneys probably knew already about these other marks that were out there, because usually you do a search first and you find out what the lay of the land is. And when you're picking marks, especially marks like the Commanders, they're very kind of well-known terms. And so you almost always expect that there are going to be obstacles. And part of the job of their attorneys is to clear those. So, in any case, but yes, maybe they will be called the rebrands. That's very funny. Lisa, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I could see how there could be a lot of confusion with continuously changing your name. and rebranding. I mean, that could cause a lot of confusion for what team are you actually that changes every week.
On
So,
the
I mean,
back
I
of,
could see a lot of confusion with that.
yeah, I mean, on the back of the jerseys, they could have a question mark, right?
Yeah. Yeah. That's funny.
So thank you. And Lee, what are your thoughts on all of this?
I'm of the opinion that the trademark should be denied because the word commander is a common word, and I don't believe you should give trademarks to common words. Contrast that with Pat Riley's trademark of three-peat. Now, that's a word that isn't a real word. He created that. He got the trademark for that. But commander, sorry, that's a rank. That's a term that's used in the Navy.
Mhm.
So I don't believe that they should be granted a trademark. And by the way, the Commander Cup, I always thought it was called the Army Navy game.
Right. Well, now they have to have merchandise to sell, so now it's the Commander Classic, I guess.
Oh,
But,
Commander Classic. I still know it as the Army Navy game. It's how
Yeah.
I've always seen it advertised.
Yeah. So there you go.
Well, but he brings up a good point. I think people do sometimes get generic words as add-ons, and correct me if I'm wrong, because they're filed in certain classifications. So, like if you were a commander in the Navy, you probably wouldn't be printing up T-shirts with your brand on it. So that might be one way they wiggle around it, but I don't know.
No, that's exactly right. There's different classifications, and you can get, if you use the word commander, say for computers, there's not necessarily a connection to the rank or a person who's a commander. So you might be able to get a trademark on that word. On the other hand, if you are literally a commander and you're trying to get a trademark on something related to your status, then it probably won't happen. So